Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, and assembled company, wherever you are in this wide world, it's with enormous pleasure we have the second of our Australian guests, this 10 o'clock in the morning in the UK, midday in Romania, and 7 o'clock in the evening in New South Wales. So it is with enormous pleasure I introduce Lillian Rodrigues Pang. Wait, give her a round of applause.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity for the World Storytelling Cafe as well. It's a massive privilege to be able to be one of your 100 tellers, which is very fabulous. I am just checking in and having a look because I'm very aware that at the moment, aside from my little one there sticking her face as close to the screen as she can, we have mainly adult audience, which is kind of what I expected if it was an Australian audience. Not so sure about the international audience. So I might just ask for your guidance on what stories you would like to hear, all of you actually, because I have prepared a little bit of a list which is both adult and both child and all of those things. So what would you prefer? If you want a children's story first, hands up. Oh, we're being very adult. If we want to be
you have to be aware that there's a they might you're going to get mainly an adult audience, but children might be listening, so
okay.
Usual rules apply.
Usual rules apply, yes. Okay, so what I will do then is I will feature the first story as more of a children's friendly story, or aimed towards the little ones, and then I'll go into an every ages kind of story from there. But the first thing I would like to do is to acknowledge country. I would like to acknowledge that I am sitting on Dharawal land right now. I would like, so for anyone who's watching that's from an international audience who is not aware of this protocol, this is a moment where we can all take to honour the land and the people of the land that have come before us and our version of occupation and our version of existence right now. So if we take this moment just to take a deep breath and to listen very deeply to all the senses as we sink our mind and ourself down below the ground, below the buildings, below the car floor, below the shoes, and we sink into the depth of the earth, and we acknowledge all of the lives, all of the spirits, all of the energy, the joy, the happiness, the togetherness, the living that has occurred before us. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land that I'm on, which is the Dharawal people. And if you can all take a moment to acknowledge the traditional lands that you sit on and listen on as well, that would be beautiful. So, a deep breath. I would like to also acknowledge any Aboriginal people that are around me today or any of you today, and I would like to acknowledge the Aboriginal people who will become elders of our future as well and leaders into our future of this life that we will all lead together. So now that we've done the acknowledgement, I'll go into a story. And one of the things with the acknowledgement for me is that I am very aware that my family came as migrants, and that the opportunity to live here in Australia has been an opportunity that has a deep and thorough history, and that I don't leave behind who I am and who I am becoming. And I would like to use all of the identities that I am in this next story. This next thing that is called is a story that I heard as an English story originally, and then I started messing with it and putting in Spanish and mixing with the cultures. You can see behind me, I have some traditional artwork from El Salvador because that is where my heritage is from. My mother is born in El Salvador, and a lot of my family are still there. So anyone who does end up watching this from El Salvador, okay. So this story is about a young boy who was sitting at home one day and he was bored. He was bored of his books. He was bored of his toys. He was bored of his Lego, if that is even possible. He was bored of his television. He was bored. And he walked into the kitchen and he found his mum and he said, "Mama, I am bored." Now his mama, who always knew of fantastic things for people to do, said, "Juancito, today you shall go on an adventure. You will go and you will find a little red house, un casita roja, sin ventanas, no windows, sin puertas, no doors, con un estrella adentro, with a star right inside of it." Juancito was excited, huh? Where will he find this? A little red house, no windows, no doors, but a star that lives inside of it? Where is such a thing? And Mama said, no, slow down. You have to leave the house, walk through the path, walk down and over the mountain, and then you will find un casita roja, sin ventanas, sin puertas, con una estrella adentro, with a star right inside. Juancito was excited. He went and put his hat, his sunscreen, his jacket, and off he went. He walking. Bye, Mama. She's like, "Tell me when you find it, huh?" So Juancito, he starts walking. He's walking out the house. He walks straight out of that yard, through the gate, onto the front footpath, and he's thinking, why haven't I found it yet, huh? At that moment, Juancito finds a little girl in the pathway, and she is looking up, and she is dancing with the shadows of a tree. And she is moving and swaying. Juancito, he takes off his hat. He says, "Disculpe, huh? Do you know where I can find un casita roja, sin ventanas, sin puertas, con un estrella adentro?" The girl was so excited. A little red house, no windows, no doors, but with a star that lives inside. This is fantastic. You know, she stopped dancing. She's starting to think, but she has never seen such a thing. But she says to Juancito, I know. You can ask my abuelita, my grandmother, huh? She is old. She lived here all her life. She knows everything there is to know. Ask my abuelita. You have to walk. She lives halfway up the mountain there. Well, Juancito, he says, gracias. He puts on his hat and he keeps on walking. He walks and he walks, but now he's walking down the mountain. And he's thinking, gosh, I don't know why I haven't found it yet, huh? And he keeps walking and walking. He walks up the mountain and he sees halfway up that there is a house. And on the front veranda of this house is abuelita. And she is sitting up the front on her chair. She's having her own cafecito. Juancito, he walks straight up to her. He takes off his hat. He says, "Disculpe, abuelita, can you tell me where I can find un casita roja, sin ventanas, sin puertas, con una estrella adentro?" Abuelita, she's like, no. All of my life. And I have never seen this little red house with no windows, no doors, but a star that lives inside of it. No, no, no. I know. You can ask el viento, the wind, huh? You can ask el viento, because el viento, he swirls around everyone's houses, going in their windows, in their chimneys, listening to everything. El viento is the one who will know, huh? Well, Juancito, he says, gracias, abuelita. Thank you very much, huh? He puts on his hat and he begins to walk up the rest of the hill. But now, he's not feeling so good. You see, maybe there is no, with no windows, no doors, and una estrella adentro. Maybe it doesn't exist. His mama has never been wrong before, of course, but maybe this one time she is wrong, huh? What's he gonna do? And he starts walking and he's kicking his legs and at that moment, when Juancito is looking at the ground, el viento, the wind, comes whoosh, swirling around him. And Juancito, he doesn't even look up. He just, you know, el viento picks up a leaf and drops it in Juancito's hand, just to show what a good friend it is. Juancito's like, ay, viento, mire, estoy buscando, I am looking out por un casita roja, a little red house, sin ventanas, sin puertas, no windows, no doors, con un estrella adentro. Do you know where I could find this? El viento swishes up high and runs forward. And Juancito, he's looking around him. El viento is going over the mountain. Juancito runs after el viento. El viento tops the mountain and goes down the other side. Juancito is running after el viento. El viento swells up into an orchard, up into the first tree. And Juancito runs up to the tree. He has his hands in the air like this. And el viento is at the top of the tree and drops down into Juancito's hand. Oh, Juancito thinks about this. This here, this is like a chimney, no? And it's red. It's a little red house. It has no windows. It has no doors. And at that moment, Juancito pulls out his pocket knife. He cuts it open and he sees un estrella adentro. Juancito says, gracias, viento, gracias. And he runs back to his mama to show her un casita roja, sin ventanas, sin puertas, con un estrella adentro. So that is the story of the little red house with no windows, no doors, but it has a star right inside of it. So if anyone, thank you, Marie, thank you. If anyone wants to tell this story, Rosie, you have a manzana as well. You can always create the little red house with the star inside if you cut the apple across its stomach. So not against the top, but across its stomach. A red apple will always have the seeds in the shape of a star. So it's some common geometry for us, sometimes more visible than other times. I have a very bruised apple here. Not as common with the green apple and not as common with the pear. So try and make it your little red house. Sin ventanas, sin puertas. So that is story number 1. I'll put these away. Now, story number 2. Growing up in Australia, I was very fortunate to grow up in a number of places, but the dominant one that I grew up in was a suburb called Cabramatta, which is in the southwest Sydney. And Cabramatta became famous years into my time living there because of a whole range of issues, most famous for immigration, and for some of the more kind of world racist views that were being expressed by politicians. So Cabramatta became a bit of a kind of target zone for that. I loved many, many, many things about growing up in Cabramatta. One of the things I love the diversity that ended up coming into Cabramatta. So this story that I am going to tell you is a Vietnamese story, because most of the refugees, so El Salvador, we started coming in, and then after us in the 74, I think, with just after the Whitlam government and the new government came in, was the Southeast Asian immigrants into, so the boat people were coming into Cabramatta West, which is where I was living. So I grew up with a lot of Lao community, Vietnamese, Southeast Asian, and I grew up with a lot of the stories and the music and the food, which I loved, and wonderful, beautiful friendships. And so this story is one of the Clever Boy series. Now, I work with, the more I learn about the Clever Boy series. So many cultures have a character, you know, the coyote or Brer Rabbit, or in Colombia there is Señor Rabbit. So there are many characters that travel through, or Anansi in West African stories. So Clever Boy is one of the common characters for story collections for Vietnamese stories. And this is one of those stories. So set in a little village. So we're going to cast ourselves down to a riverside village. And in this village, they lived like the setup of most villages. The wealthy, the center of town, it's big and it's dominant. But the poorer people live on the edge of town. And on the very, very edge of town lived a husband and wife and their one son. Now, the husband and the wife, they worked hard, but a series of misfortunes, a series of events meant no matter how much they worked, they always end up still living quite poorly on that edge of town. Now, this one day, both his mother and his father were out to work, and the young boy was playing in the dirt in front of his house, just messing around with some sticks and some stones and his imagination. And at this time, there was a moneylender. Now, the moneylender had almost retired. In fact, he was so wealthy he didn't need to work anymore. But every now and then he liked to go out and he liked to express his power, and he liked to just stand it over a few people here and there. Now, this one day, the moneylender rode up on his horse and decided that he was going to get some debt that was owed to him. So he rode up to the very edge of town. He pulled up outside of the house, and here was the boy playing in the dirt. And he said, "Hey, boy, where is your mother? Where is your father?" Now, this boy did not even look up, just playing in the dirt. He said, "My mother is catching the wind to buy the moon. And my father is killing the living to plant the dead." Moneylender thinks about this and it's like, "What do you mean? Just tell me where they are." Now the boy looks up and he says, "I have told you. My mother is selling the wind to buy the moon, and my father is cutting the living to plant the dead. The moneylender, this kid's crazy. What's he talking about? And he goes to leave, but he does not like not having control. He doesn't like not knowing. He's about to leave and he has to come back. Kid, tell me what you mean. Tell me this riddle, huh? Now the kid is not going to tell him. Oh no, he just repeats it. He says, and can you all say it? My mother is selling the wind to buy the moon, and my father is chopping the living, killing the living to plant the dead. This drives the money lender crazy. He cannot believe this kid would know it more than he. He's like, kid, you got to tell me what it is. And the boy says, well, what will you give me in return? Now the money lender's like, yeah, okay, I like you, kid. I understand you now. What do you want? And the boy looks at him and says, I want you to forgive all of our family's debt. The moneylender looks around him and goes, and you will tell me? The boy says yes. So the moneylender agrees. Okay, I will forgive all of your family debt. Now tell me the solution. And the boy is like, no. I'm not going to just take your word for it. We have to have a witness. The moneylender looks, no one around. He does see that there is a blowfly on the fence near them. And he says, well, this blowfly is a living creature. It can be our witness. And the boy says, yeah, great, excellent. The blowfly will be our witness. Okay, so you forgive all our debt? And I was like, yes, of course. Well, my mother is at the market selling fans, selling the wind, to buy oil for our lamp, to buy the moon. And my father is cutting the living trees to plant the dead. He's making a fence for the neighbor. So they are both out working. The moneylender has his answer and he rides off and he's happy, and the boy's back and he's feeling really happy too. And life goes on for the next few days until this third day, and the boy hears a great big argument outside. And he walks out, and there is his mother and father arguing with the moneylender. The moneylender's saying, if you do not pay me, I am taking you to the local court. But the boy's saying, no, hang on. You forgave our debt. The moneylender's like, I've never even met you, kid. The boy said, no, you promised. You forgave our debt. And the mother and the father are like, what's he talking about? And the boy's trying to explain what happened, but the moneylender's yelling and everything's going on around them, and the son is arguing for all he's worth, and the mother and the father notice that he is really passionate and arguing. And so the argument blows up so much that the moneylender says, we're going to court now. And by now, all of the neighbours are around, everyone's around them, and they all march into the centre of the village. And they all march up to the judge. And they stand before the judge, and the judge is asking them, what is the case that you bring before me? The moneylender stands up and he says, you know I've been lending money, and this is the situation, and they owe me this much money. And then the judge looks at the boy and says, and at the mother and father, and says, what do you have to say? And they explain the situation with their son. And the judge asks the boy to stand up. And the boy tells his version of the story, and the judge stops and listens to all of it. But then the judge asks the boy, do you have a witness? And the boy says, yes, yes, I do. I have a witness. It was a blowfly. And everyone in the court starts laughing. Everyone. And the moneylender stands back smugly. And the boy looks around. And he says, no, it's the truth. It was a blowfly. There is a blowfly that the moneylender is best friends with. The moneylender carries it around on his nose. It flies up his nose and into the other one. It flies around his ears. It flies around his mouth. When he's talking, it's even in his mouth. It's his best friend. He told me this was the one, that this could be our witness because it's his closest friend in the world. Now the whole community's laughing and the judge is sitting back and the boy is just taking it further and further. This fly is in the mouth and everything until the moneylender stands up and says, the fly was on the fence post. And so the judge recognizes the truth spoken by the boy. And they get to walk away. His mum and his dad return to their jobs, which was selling the wind to buy the moon and chopping the living to plant the dead. And they lived debt-free, and from that chance could keep working towards a better life from that moment, all because of one very clever boy. So that, thank you. It's very strange, this interaction. I'm very happy when I can see people doing their claps because it makes sense to me. But we have quite a few screens off and stuff as well. I'm going to move this further back and I'm going to tell a story. So along with this one is going to be with my djembe is out getting reskinned at the moment, so I can't use my djembe. This is my boogaraboo. So I will use my boogaraboo and I hope that the sound travels well for all of you. Being the incredibly multicultural society that Australia is, I have been very fortunate to learn drumming from a range of people. My very first long-term drumming teacher was Marianthe Lucadaris, who is a spectacular woman and a phenomenal drummer and musician. So please look her up if you get a moment. She has some beautiful YouTube. She does a lot of Middle Eastern drumming, but back then she would also do African drumming. And I also learnt from the Bangora brothers and from Nini Tuti and from Sam Evans. So I have been very, very fortunate to learn drumming from a range of people. In my years of drumming and playing and messing around, I was able to play with Afro Moses. Afro Moses lived in Newcastle, in Sydney. He's moved around a bit, but he's originally from Ghana. And Afro Moses, one day when we were driving to a gig, told me this story and gave me permission to keep sharing this story. I have never, ever found this story in written format, so I treasure it completely and utterly as one of the stories that has come from someone's heart and sharing to me, and now I can give it through heart and sharing to you as well. So in the very traditional form of a straight out spoken word story. So, all right. So this story is set in a city. Can you hear it? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear that, or on the chat? I can just see the chats come up now. Hello, everyone. Can you let me know on the chat if that drum is coming up okay? Yep. Keep going with that drum level. You can hear it. Awesome. Okay. So this story is about a man who woke up one day. And when he woke up in the morning, he looked around him and all he could hear was noise. Oh, he got up. He had his breakfast and all around him was noise. He walked to work. There was noise. He stayed at work. There was noise. He did his work, he walked home, he did his shopping, he did his food, he did everything, and it noise. It was driving him crazy. One day, this man woke up and he was done. Enough of the noise. He grabbed a small backpack and he began to walk. He walked and he walked. He walked and he walked. He walked out of the city. He walked into the suburbs. When he got to the suburbs, he stopped and he heard noise. There were lawnmowers and cars and buses and televisions. There was noise, 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 noise. The man kept walking. It took days, nights, but he walked and he walked and he walked until he came to the very edge of the suburbs, into the rural towns. He stopped and he listened. And what do you think he heard? More noise! There were animals and dogs and kids on bikes and motorbikes, and there are animals here and there's goats and everything's around him, and there's still more noise. The man kept walking. He walked and he walked and he walked. He walked right out of the rural towns and right in to the forest. He stopped and he listened. And he heard, what do you think? Noise! Oh my gosh, there were birds, there were animals, there were sticks, there was wind, there was noise, 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 noise. The man kept on walking. Walked and he walked into that forest. Took moons. He walked and he walked and he walked until he got to a small clearing in the forest. He stood still and he heard silence. Oh, that man felt peace. That man, he felt happy. He decided this would be the place he could live. The man settled down and he built himself a little hut, just a little one, out of whatever he could find. And most importantly, he built himself a little clay oven, a stove thing, so he could make his bread. He got out his backpack and he had flour and salt and he carried the water with him. And that was all he needed for a wonderful life. Oh, he felt good. The man, he finally felt happy. This was good. Whoa. He woke up in the morning and there was silence. He stoked the fire in that little clay oven of his and there was silence. He baked the bread, he smelled that bread, all in silence. Oh, it was so good. He was so happy. You know, he would go to bed in silence. He would wake up in silence. He did this every day and he felt good. This one day, a bird came along and it's noticed that this man was eating fresh bread every day. So that bird waited in a tree branch. And the next day, the man woke up in silence, started the fire in, made that dough, made that bread, put it into the oven, all in glorious silence. And when that bread was ready, he pulled it out, cracked it open, and heard, he He looked around and there was that bird begging, making noise. The man couldn't have this noise. He found a rock, he picked it up and he pegged it at that bird, and the bird flew back and black and up onto the branch all on its own. And that man ate all of his bread in silence. And he felt good. He loved living in silence. He was happy. This is what he wanted. The rest of the day, he was happy in silence. He went to bed with silence. And when he woke up the next day, what do you think happened? We know, don't we? He woke up in silence. He made that fire in silence. He made that dough in silence. He put that dough into the oven and he watched it cook. But when he pulled it out perfectly ready and he cracked it open, there was another bird sitting in the tree, a second bird, and this bird went, "Ow! Ow!" That man looked around. Where was this noise? The bird was begging for a bit of bread. The man looked at the bird and said, "Get away!" The bird begged for some more. The man picked up a rock and threw it at the bird. The bird flew back and landed next to bird number one. Together, bird number one and bird number two watched that man eat all of his bread alone. And that man, he felt good. He loved silence. He felt great. He spent the rest of his day He spent the rest of the night in. But you know how stories go. On the third day, there is a third bird. That man woke up in the morning. He looked around and it was, fantastic. He lit the fire in. He made the dough and he put it into the flames in. And then when that bread smelled just right, he pulled it out of the oven, he cracked it open, and he heard, another bird! He looks around, no! He picks up a rock, he throws it at the bird, and that bird flies away and lands on that branch. And now there are 1, 2, 3 birds watching him eat all of that bread in. And the man feels good. The birds, they get to talking. They think, we'll give this one more go. Let's try doing this together. So the next day, the man woke up in. He lit that fire in. He made the dough. He put it into the oven, all in wondrous, beautiful. And then when that bread was ready, smelled so good, he cracked it open and he heard, eat, 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 That man, he didn't hear noise. He heard eat, yeah, eat, oh, eat, his body began to move to You can let your body move to this too. Sing along. Then man, he began to dance. He began to feel what it's like to have music. He began to feel joy in his whole body. He had been happy before, but now he felt joy moving up right through his body. And he danced and he danced. You can join him now. The man danced and danced, and he felt that joy in his body. When he cracked open that bread, he ate half, and he gave half to those 3 birds begging. From that day on, those birds shared their music with the man, and he shared joy of music and his bread with the birds. He lived happily ever after in his clearing, not with silence, but with music and joy. That's the story of 3 birds begging from Ghana. Now, I am very aware of the time, and I think I have hit my time limit. John, have I? Here we go. Let me change my screen. If you want to unmute, I would love to be able to finish with a little bit of conversation rather than just me in, hey, Celia.
If everybody unmutes themselves, we can't unmute you, so you're going to have to unmute yourselves. But Lillian, that was fantastic. I want your permission to tell the clever boy story.
Oh, well, it's a traditional story, and I can send you the links of where you can find different versions of it and things like that. I do work, I train a group called the Forked Tongue Storytellers in Fairfield, and some of those storytellers are working on that story as well. So there are a couple of Vietnamese speaking storytellers in that group, a few Arabic, and a few, we've got many nationalities actually. There's about 6 or 7 different language groups. So we all work on bilingual stories together.
It's a classic trickster story, and it's beautiful. It just clicks into my whole approach.
It is a wonderful story, and a lot of the Vietnamese stories are like that. They have tricks and thoughts, and there's a real sensitivity and generosity and compassion in the stories as well that make them so beautiful.
And I like the idea of the trickster being called Clever Boy, because Jack in Europe is he's either lazy or or something, and but that Clever Boy I think is beautiful. I think,
yeah,
and I must explore more.
Yeah, I like stories where we understand that our young people are our clever people and can be empowered and can make so many wonderful changes, and we really need them to into the future.
True.
So anyone else who wants to talk as well? Hello, Aviva. Hello, it's so wonderful seeing people's faces. We've all been isolated.
Fabulous.
I kind of want to harass Liz into putting her video on because I haven't seen your gorgeous face in a long time.
Okay.
And Matt Bourne, you have to unvideo yours, Matt. Hi, Liz.
Hi. That was lovely. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to watch all of it. I had to do a whole lot of multitasking, but the bit that I watched was fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Liz. You can watch back at any time. And I think Matty has actually closed himself off now, but Matt does work with me as a storyteller. He's a percussionist, and we have a CD together. He's a wonderful percussionist.
Oh.
So, yeah, but yeah, anyone else wants to say? I don't know how long.
Fun. Hi, it's Mike here. I just like to say Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Mike. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Lillian. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to say that, you know, from my perspective, it was wonderful that you started by honouring other traditions, and you took us on a fantastic journey from to Africa and Vietnam, honouring El Salvador as well. But also, I think, you know, you are doing something really, really special and unique yourself. You know, you shouldn't lose sight of that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And Lillian, Mike's sitting up there quite anonymously in the corner on my screen, but Mike is the reason we have, Mike and his wife Lucy are the reason we have this wonderful platform, because I'm just the front man, but there's this whole team, and it was Mike. The whole thing started, and it's a story in itself. Mike and Lucy. Mike run Riads in Marrakesh, and and they wanted to start a storytelling centre in Marrakesh, and bless his heart, Mike rang up and said, "Well, would I want to be involved?" And you know, as an old beatnik, you know, if you're asked to go anywhere in the world, you do it. And then all this pandemic hit, and I suddenly got another phone call saying, we can't do the cafe physically at the moment, but we could do it online. We'll have the world's storytelling cafe, and we'll have storytellers all over the world. Can you arrange this, John? And you know, I mean, I was doing nothing else for the pandemic. I couldn't even get to my house in Romania. I was stuck in a flat in England, and it's just grown and grown. But without Mike and Lucy, you know, and of course the whole team behind, because all the team that usually do everything for the Riads are working on this. So we've got Yuliu and Bianca in Romania, and then with a whole team in Morocco, in Marrakesh, and we've built this world community, which is fantastic, and everything for everyone watching. Because hello everyone, I'm seeing you for the first time today. This is great. You know, we're a bit slow. It took us 3 months to work out that, probably 4 months to work out that Australia couldn't listen at 3 o'clock in the morning in Australia. so we started this 10 o'clock thing. And anyone who knows any storytellers, tell them to get in touch with me in Australia, because you know, I can't even fly out there to find it. And but all our stuff is on archive. So if you can't see it, you know, because most of it goes out at 6 o'clock in the evening, you can watch it next morning in Australian time. And we've got Monday. Well, this evening we've got we've got a Brazilian storyteller, Fabio Lisboa. But Monday we've got I do a magazine program, and we're looking at different Cinderella stories. And Joe, who's on 2 weeks ago from Australia, has sent us a Australian Cinderella story. And we've got a Moroccan story. Zuhar in Morocco is doing a Moroccan Cinderella story. And there's David Thompson in Austin in Texas is doing an ancient Egyptian, probably the very first Cinderella story. So. And so far, and I don't know what else is happening, but there'll be others. But so that works. It's kind of where we are now. I've talked for far too long, so you can talk to Lillian again. But
I just noticed.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Wonderful.
And this is quite important as well. Before I shut up totally, next Lily's not, because so artists have had a really difficult job through this pandemic, actually earning any money as artists. So there is a little hat. So if anyone wants to pop anything into the hat, I think you're going to send your stuff from you to. Do you want to talk about this charity that you're sending it to?
Yes, I'm donating it. So with the Black Lives Matter movement that has been significant throughout the world. There is a corresponding Black Lives Matter for Aboriginal Australians as well. And there is an organisation, so I've put it on my website, that assists elder Aboriginal women into getting their voice heard in politics, getting into the political realm. I think that is where my money can be best spent, and where I would like any donations to go as well, because I think it's engagement with the political process that is what we need.
So if you pop it into Lillian's hat, she will pass that on.
So the link is there, and you can look into that a little bit further as well for anyone who's interested in that.
And anyone who's watching on sort of Facebook or any of the other mediums, if they go to the website and click on Lillian's name, they will see the hat. That's quite cool.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you everyone who watched it live, and everyone who is going to watch it at some point in time, for spending time with me. And thank you to Mike and John and everyone who is working so hard to make this available.
And keep an eye out, everyone. There will be more Australians. I've just got to find them. And I'm going down. I'm traveling the virtual. I'm hitchhiking down the virtual highway to find some more southern hemisphere storytellers. But meanwhile, another round of applause. She can hear us this time. We're unmuted. A round of applause for Lillian.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful, Lillian. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye. All these beautiful faces. Dane, Liz, Aviva, Helen. My
Bye,
children.
Rosie. The whole world has seen you
Bye.
now.
Bye, Ellen.
See ya.